옛날 한국에는 마음을 본다는 관심술로 사람들을 떨게 만들었던 유명한 왕이 있었죠.
누구인가?
사진이 발견되고 난 지 한 50년쯤 지나자 마음으로 사진을 찍으려는 사심술이 동서양에서 불같이 일어났죠. 마음사진술, 연금술처럼 계속 인류의 미제처럼 남을까요?
Thoughtography is the claimed ability to burn images from one's mind onto surfaces, such as photographic film by psychic means. Thoughtography is also called
투영된 성우 그래피,
psychic photography, ningraphy,
맹샷,
Thoughtography has no connection with spiritualism, which distinguishes it from spirit photography. While the term thoughtography has been in the English lexicon since 1913, a remake of the 1998 Japanese horror film Ring, the more recent term projected thermography is a neologism popularized in the 2002 U.S. film The Ring. In 1893, Nikola Tesla, a Serbian-American genius inventor, came up with a thought projector, which he dubbed Dankin projector. The momentum is his mother. In the midst of the demonstration, on the transmission of the power, by the wireless electricity at Paris, in 1892, he happened to see an empty seat. He thought someone must have become ill suddenly. At that moment, he saw his mother on that seat. Soon she disappeared. He rushed home in time to see his mother, just before she died. That is, a beginning of his thought transmitter. In March 1893, he made in his famous lecture, before the National Electric Light Association convention at St. Louis, when announcing his discovery of radio. He thought if he could invent radio, a voice transmitter without wire, why not Dankin projector, a thought transmitter? However, it never came to fruition, and 40 years later, he was quoted saying, in an article published in the Kansas City Journal-Post, in September 1933,
I expect to photograph thoughts. I became convinced that a definite image formed in thought must by reflex action produce a corresponding image on the retina, which might be read by a suitable apparatus. Now if this can be done successfully, every thought of the individual could be read. Our minds would then, indeed, be like open books.
In November 1895, Dr. Ingalls Rogers published the idea that the image of objects on the retina of the human eye might so affect it that a photograph could be produced by looking at a sensitive plate, in total darkness, immediately after the excitation of the retina by light. In the Amateur Photographer of February 20, 1896, Dr. Ingalls Rogers, in the course of a long article, states that he found it necessary to produce a vacuum, in the space, between the eye and the plate. Dr. Rogers claimed the discovery of psychic photography, together with a couple of illustrations. In 1896, Arthur Brunel Chatwood, an associate of the Institute of Electrical Engineers, described psychic photography in his book The New Photography. In the book, Chatwood mentioned,
"Some 10 years ago, I myself made experiments in this direction, and even at that time, I believe the idea was not new. At any rate, it was suggested to me, and most of the experiments which I made were not at all on my own account, or for my own purposes. The process is remarkably simple. The operator stares steadily for a short time at some brightly illuminated object, and then, the room being suddenly darkened, at a sensitive plate. No lens or camera is necessary. After staring at the plate in a steady manner for from 5 minutes to half an hour, it is developed. The results that have been published are some, but vague and fluffy, this fluffulence probably being caused by a difference in distance from the eye to the object and to the sensitive plate. The apparatus which I constructed consisted of a brass tube about 1.5 inch in diameter and 10 inch long, filled at one end with a rest like that used with a telescope eyepiece, and attached at the other to a small camera carrying a holder, one half of which contained a plate and the other a transparency or a piece of glass to which objects were attached and viewed by transmitted light.
Showing his retinal impression. Piece of paper printed both sides, and viewed by transmitted light, he warned that
I would advise anyone, however, who has not remarkably strong eyes to forego experiment in this direction.
The book was criticized in a review, in Sir Joseph Norman Lockyer, an English scientist's influential journal, Nature. The new photography is, to say the least, a trifle premature as regards. The title, as well as the shadow of the bones of a hand, printed upon the title page, is misleading as to the contents. Around 1910, the term thoughtography was first introduced by Dr. Tomokichi Fukurai. During a period of interest in spiritualism in Japan, Fukurai, an associate professor at Tokyo Imperial University, became involved with psychical research. He was involved in a series of parapsychology experiments where he published the results alleging that one of his subjects was capable of telepathically imprinting images on photoplates. He called this Nensha. Fukurai used Chizuko Mifune, Ikuko Nagao, and others as subjects. In December 1910, Mifune and Nagao, supernatural power persons, succeeded in conducting experiments by clairvoyance to print Chinese characters, putting a sealed photographic plate in an iron box that does not allow X-rays to pass through. When journalists found irregularities, their credibility was attacked. And Chizuko Mifune committed suicide at age of 24, and there was speculation that Ikuko Nagao's later illness and death was caused by distress over criticism. In 1913, Fukurai published Clairvoyance and Thoughtography. The book also was criticized for a lack of scientific approach, and his work disparaged by the university and his colleagues. Fukurai eventually resigned in 1913. In 1931, Fukurai used another subject, Koichi Mita. It is said that Koichi Mita looked through the backside of the moon, that cannot be seen from the Earth, but at that time, there was no way to confirm that it matched the actual moon. That year Fukurai published Clairvoyance and Thoughtography, an English-language edition, insisting again the characteristics of the thoughtography with 119 B.A.P.W. illustrations and photos as follows. The camera is no use for the thoughtography. A sitter can select at will any object. Thoughtography can be made as well on the rolled film as on an unfolded one. In the early 20th century, the German psychical researcher, Albert von Schrenck-Notzing investigated the medium French Eva Carrière, and claimed her ectoplasm materializations were the result of idioplasty, in which the medium could form images onto ectoplasm, from her mind. In 1914, Schrenck-Notzing published the book, Materializations Phenomena, which included photographs of the ectoplasm. Critics wrote that the ectoplasm of Carrière was fake, and was made of cut-out paper faces from newspapers and magazines. A photograph of Carrière revealed the letters Le Miro, that had been clipped from the French magazine Le Miroir. Schrenck-Notzing discovered Carrière had taken her ectoplasm faces from the magazine, and admitted that on several occasions Carrière deceptively smuggled pens into the séance room. But he defended her by claiming she had read the magazine, but her memory had recalled the images, and they had materialized into the ectoplasm. In the 1960s, it was claimed that Chicago resident Ted Serios, a hotel bellhop in his late 40s, used psychokinetic powers to produce images on Polaroid instant film. The camera of choice for Serios was a Polaroid 95, using Type 47 film. Even with its lens system removed, or with the outer lens covered with tape. Nor did Serios have to hold the camera to click the shutter. He could make an image sometimes appear on the film. He also made many non-images, the scientists called blackies and whiteys. When he did create an image, it usually had a soft, often blurred, mysterious dreamlike quality. Serios's psychic claims were bolstered by the endorsement of a Denver-based psychiatrist, Jules Eisenbud. Jules Eisenbud, M.D., was educated at Columbia College and Columbia College of Physicians and Surgeons, where he received both the Doctor of Medicine and Doctor of Medical Science degrees. Eisenbud was certainly aware of the pitfalls of paranormal study. Serios was an alcoholic. His, Ted Serios, research project was well documented. By 1966, Eisenbud published The World of Ted Serios, Photographic Studies of an Extraordinary Mind, arguing that Serios's purported psychic abilities were genuine. However, professional photographers and skeptics found that Serios was employing simple sleight of hand. In 1995, Uri Geller, an Israeli-British illusionist, began to use a 35mm camera in his performances. The lens cap left on the camera, Geller would take pictures of his forehead, and then have the pictures developed. Geller claimed that subsequent images had come directly from his mind. James Randi claimed Geller had performed the trick by using a handheld optical device, or by taking photographs on already exposed film. Masuaki Kyoto is a Japanese psychic, known for his alleged ability of thoughtography. He first became famous as an Asiatic version of Uri Geller, bending spoons and other cutlery. But his real forte was a routine, using a Polaroid camera, which was, in turn, a takeoff on the work of Ted Serios. However, on February 3, 1984, Fuji TV's Friday family-wide aired that Polaroid film was exposed to the toilet in advance, and used the trick of replacing the film. Kyoto confessed to fraud. The British-born American psychical researcher Hereward Carrington, in his book, Modern Psychical Phenomena, wrote that many psychic photographs were revealed to be fraudulent, produced by substitution and manipulation of the plates, double printing, double exposure and chemical screens. However, Carrington also stated he believed some of the photographs to be genuine. Skeptics, among them professional photographers and James Randi, consider psychic photographs to be faked, or the result of flaws in the camera or film, exposures, film processing errors, lens flares, flash reflections, or chemical reactions. Currently, the Fukurai Institute of Psychology Incorporated is run by the son-in-law of Dr. Tomokichi Fukurai. The institute continues to insist on the thoughtography. As an example, they introduced the thoughtography of The Far Side of the Moon, by Mr. Koichi Mita, is very similar with the moon image released by NASA. On September 7, 2014, ABC News aired, "Scientists transmit thoughts from one brain to another." An international team of scientists has succeeded in transmitting the thoughts of one individual into the brain of a second person, located thousands of miles away, combining some of the latest technological marvels with the long arm of the Internet. This is thought to be the first time that two brains have communicated with each other directly over a long distance, without the sender having to utter a single word. La Trobe University introduced a pop-up thoughtography for gallery visitors in 2016, How the Subconscious Mind Responds to Art. Participants were shown artwork from the exhibition, while wearing a special dry electrode electroencephalogram headset that measured the electrical impulses coming from the frontal lobe of their brain. In May 2020, Modern Thoughtography, Mind Interaction at a Distance with Digital Camera Sensors, a pilot study was issued by Evan Lab, Università and Università di Padova, Italy. The aim of this pilot study was to verify the possibility of mentally influencing from a distance the digital sensor of a commercial professional photographic camera, imprinting predetermined images on it. They used Nikon D8502 and the Structural Similarity Index procedure. Although still preliminary, the results suggest that it may be possible to use modern professional cameras to study the effects of distant mind-matter interactions. Inspired by the original mad scientist himself, Nikola Tesla, many modern-day inventors are still studying vision and exploring the idea of mind-reading cameras. In attempts at mind-reading, scientists have developed algorithms that can learn to interpret brain signals and reproduce a rough version of images seen in a person's mind. And they have created artificial retinas, through sophisticated mathematical analyses of how real retinas convert images to electrical impulses to send up to the brain. So what do you think? Do you think a person can replicate their thoughts onto film, or will it never become a reality? I bet someday humankind would invent the robot that takes pictures of our thoughts. Is it good or terrible for us? At all event, I'd like to mention the most important point. We may have already a thought camera. That is, as far as I'm concerned, all photographs may be thoughtography.
Und nicht in Nacht das Weilchen nahm, zertrag das arme Weilchen. Es sank und starb und freut sich noch und starb ich dann, so starb ich doch nur